ladies.
Hello.
Hi, Paula. I see you there, honey. Hello, 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 followers. Thank you for joining me for another one of my lives. We are back tonight, part two of our last live. For those of you that was with me or with us on September 19th, I believe it was, we did a discussion entitled Fathers by Name Only. There was one question that we all struggled to answer, which was, when is it or is it ever a good time to remove a parent from a child's life? I replaced the word father with the word parent because, as it was pointed out to me last time, it's not always fathers that take off, mothers do as well. So I changed it from fathers to parent. Is it ever a good time to remove a parent from a child's life? We did not come up with an answer on the last live. There was a lot of good comments, though, a lot of good input that we got. So we decided to do a part two. And this time with me, I have Danielle.
Hello.
Danielle, please introduce yourself and tell my followers who you are.
Okay, well, hi everyone. Good evening. Thanks for taking the time to spend with us. My name is 𝗙𝘁𝗵𝗏𝗏, but you can call me Danny. I am a psychotherapist, and I also have my own practice where there are 5 psychotherapists. We do workshops, we do weekend retreats, we do a lot of, and then obviously our bread and butter is the psychotherapy that we do. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what I do.
All right. Thank you, Danielle. So you see why I got her. I thought it would be great for her to come and join me and talk about some of the perils of what kids go through when a parent disappears, whether that parent disappears on their own or they're asked to disappear because the remaining parent doesn't feel like they are holding their weight.
Yep, pulling their weight.
They're not pulling their weight. They're not being the parent that the kid needs.
Yes.
So is there ever a good time to say, you know what, I've got this, I'll do this on my own? As a lot of you know that was here the last time, I still struggle with that answer. For me, it's really personal. And just to recap a little bit, for those that weren't here last time, my family dynamics is this topic. My mother, my grandmother, my mother, my sister, myself, and my niece were all single mothers. So this hits home for me because I remember my nephew's face pressed up against the window when his father was supposed to come and get him and didn't show up. And that was a recurring thing. And he is now in his 40s and has not let that go. It's following him. And so I mean, personally, I know what this is like. And then reading the comments for those of you that joined us the last time, I see how, this is a problem.
This is a problem. And what you're talking about is just it's a prime example of intergenerational trauma, which just means the same thing kind of happening over and over again, unfortunately. Right. And I wouldn't even say it's like, obviously there's no one to blame in it because obviously it's called intergenerational trauma for a reason, because sometimes we don't even realize it, that this same situation is just repeating itself. Right. And I think it's kind of up to us, even if we are single mothers now, it's to decide how are we going to change ourselves so that our children are not impacted, so that they don't continue the same trauma, right? And obviously, when you have a situation like this, when a parent is not in the home, whether it's the mother or the father, there is going to be an impact on the child, right? But how do we mitigate that impact, right? How do we have other good, supports, other good role models there? How do we, maybe implement some psychotherapy if needed, right? Or maybe a pastor at the church to talk to them, or just whoever, just how do we facilitate those supports so that the child does not repeat the same things? Because I know we even had a very casual offside chat about this, right? And I talked about one of my closest friends, who's actually my daughter's godfather. And he would also share this, so I don't feel bad sharing this, but he has a father that wasn't really there, right? But he has chosen, and I have seen it, like he has literally chosen to do the opposite. He's literally the model image of like husband, father. Like he just totally switched up that intergenerational trauma, and he has 2 sons. Right?
So I've often heard people that have gone through this say, I don't want to be like my father. I don't want to be like my mother. I'm going to be the exact opposite. And I think the harder they try, they fall right into those perils. My nephew, again, is a prime example that I think sometimes they try so desperately not to fall into that pattern that they absolutely do. And I know, as a single mother with my daughter's father not being around, and he wasn't around since birth. I got pregnant and then he left before I even knew I was pregnant.
Wow.
And I surrounded her with a lot of uncles, and like, I had a good friend that she called daddy. And I said to him once, I don't think you should be calling you, especially in church, people are going to be talking. And he said, if that's what makes her feel comfortable, who am I to stop that?
Oh, wow.
And so I surrounded her with a lot of aunties and uncles and cousins and daddies and what have you, but it doesn't stop her. And from every now and then, I just see that sadness in her eyes.
Wondering why.
So I guess what I'm saying in a roundabout way is that you can't replace that parent.
Of course.
No matter how much we try to put things around them. So just to kind of do a little bit of a recap of last times we met, there was a lot of good comments. A lot of good comments. One of the ones I really like, my favorite one of that session, that episode, was these men are so broken. We can't really expect them to be good fathers when they come from broken homes themselves, where they had no father in the home to model what good fatherhood looks like.
Ooh, yeah, that is a loaded comment, but hey, like I get it, right? Because if you haven't had that yourself, right, it's very difficult to take those steps, be very proactive, figure out how to do it. And then also what I think about too, in a relationship dynamic, right? It's not like, in terms of just broken homes in general, right? It's not just you, it's also the other person and what they come with and their family and their trauma, right? So sometimes even if you have the best intentions, if the other person is not working with you or with that towards that same goal of having that family unit, it's very hard to maintain that yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I agreed with that comment. That's why it was my top comment. I loved it. Now, this one is a little bit different. Yeah, this was a tough one. This commenter said, kids won't feel a way about one missed visit. If it's a routine, then that is something that needs to be addressed. By the time it's a routine, it's up to the parent to decide what is the best situation to expose their child to.
Yeah.
So, and that goes back to the question of, if it is a routine where they're not coming and not coming and not coming, who has the right to say stop coming?
Well, I think the one who's showing up as a parent, right? Because this is honestly, I thought so much about this topic because it is a hard one, right?
It's hard one.
To see where to draw the line, right? But I think, as the person in the comment suggested, if it's a one-off, obviously, hey, it's a one-off, things happen. It is what it is. If this is a constant ongoing thing and you're noticing the effect on your child of this happening over and over and over, then don't you also have a responsibility as a parent
to protect that child,
to protect your child?
I hear you. It's a real tough one. And then there was comments about it being an age thing. Like, we have to, I guess, our response, the parent that's there, the parent that stayed behind, it's their age makes a big thing too. If they're under, I don't know, 6 or 8 years old, then the single parent needs to advocate on behalf of the child. What if they're 12, 14, and 16? And the dad comes around as the wind blows, but that 12, 14, 16-year-old will take what they can get when they get it. So now, as a single mother, I can't say, don't go to your dad's house because he didn't come pick you up last weekend.
No.
You don't care about that.
No, I actually understand what you mean, because they're becoming young adults at that point, like, still children, but young adults, right? So it's like at some point they are going to be the ones that get to decide, right? But then is there not also some room for some conversation between you and the other parent potentially, talking about the issues that you believe may be negatively impacting the child? And obviously not everyone is going to be receptive to that, right? But those who are, letting them know, hey, when you don't come, this is what I notice, right? And because I think if you're able to have that healthy communication, it's going to really help the child to be able to flourish more. But I know not everyone is able to have that, because we spoke and I said, that I am also, I guess, well, I am single, but I would say my daughter's father is still very much a part of her, life, right? Which is great, right? So I wouldn't, so it's funny because I wouldn't quite say that I'm a single mother, because
he's always around.
Yeah, he's around. Like he picks her up, he takes her out, she has weekends with her, allotted weekends with him, and she looks forward to it. And he hasn't, made a habit of, not showing up or anything like that. So I do believe those are two very different scenarios.
Yes.
And I think that when couples decide to uncouple, it's very important for both parties to make sure that you decided to break up, but it doesn't mean that that should affect the relationship with your child.
So that was another comment too, is when we're talking about the remaining single parent making a decision to ask the parent who's not behaving properly, for lack of a better term, make sure that you're doing it in the best interest of the child. Not because you find out Mr. So-and-so is now dating somebody else. Now your heart is vexed, right? And he missed a couple of dates with the child. Now it's, the world's coming to an end. He's a horrible father. Don't want you around. Let's make sure our motives are pure.
Yes.
And you talked about communication amongst the two parents. And there was a lot of discussion in the last episode about communication between the single parent, the left behind parent, and the child or children.
Yes.
Even if they are 8. The 8-year-olds these days are a lot sharper and wiser than 8-year-olds back in my day. I think you can sit an 8-year-old down. I think you can sit a 6-year-old down and say, hey, do you want to go see daddy this week? Or have I don't know how serious of a conversation you can have with a 6 or an 8-year-old, but your child. You'll be able to judge what kind of conversation you can have with them to kind of gauge how they're feeling and is this a healthy thing for them? Are they at that place where they want to see that parent regardless of if it's once a month or once every 6 months, or could they care less?
Actually, it's interesting because I do have a friend who shared with me that her child, I'm just being very vague so no one really realizes who I'm talking about, expressed not wanting to go to the father's anymore. And actually straight out said, I do not want to go. So in that scenario...
How old?
12.
Okay, well.
So I feel like, what do you do in that scenario? Because obviously the relationship has been severely damaged for the child to state that they just don't want to go anymore. And then what are you going to do? Force them to go? So I think at that point, kind of as you said, they're kind of at an age where they can more or less decide at that point, right?
Yeah, well, one of the comments is here, when the kids are younger, don't tell them when the parent's coming, so that they don't. And I thought, if I use my own family as an example, my niece, for example, her kids, my great niece and my great nephew, they know the schedule.
Oh, they know.
They know when their dad's coming. They know when they're going to their dad. They know what weekends they're with daddy, what weekend they're with mommy.
Yes.
So that wouldn't work there. And how does the kid get ready if you don't tell them the parent's coming? How do they put their little bag together, their favorite toys and snacks? If you say, oh, daddy's in the driveway, get ready. Like, I don't know if that's, I don't know.
I guess maybe at a younger age, or if the visits are more informal, like where it's not like they have a set weekend or a set day or time where they always see the child, that may work. But I also argue that when you are co-parenting a child, there also has to be some mutual respect there too. Because what I think too, say if you do have a 6-year-old who you know, the idea is to not tell them until the parent's about to get there. But then what about you? What about your planning for your weekend and all of those things? if you don't know if the person's coming until an hour or two before.
Mm-hmm.
Is that respectful communication?
Yeah. That was a lot of talk. There was a lot of conversation about respecting both sides, open communication.
Yeah.
In the last episode that we had, one of the comments, a lady said, I had a friend who did give the dad multiple opportunities to be a father to his child, but then ultimately she had to go through the legal system to receive the support that was needed. The son's now 12 and doing well.
Okay.
The son is loving, smart, and surrounded by great male figures in his life.
Yeah.
I did the same thing with my daughter, but I
Okay.
tell you, there's no replacing that parent, that heartstring, that heart attachment that you have.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to replace.
I agree with you. There is no replacement for that parent, but I think we can only control ourselves, right?
Yes.
So if that person's choosing to no longer be involved, or if due to certain things that have happened, you have chosen to kind of put an end to that, at least for the time being, to when the child's at a point where they can decide for themselves, then I think that is fair, because if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Could you just repeat the end part of that question, actually? Sorry.
Are you talking about the statement that I read?
Yeah, the statement.
Yeah, she just said
I wanted
that
to respond
the
to
son is doing well.
Mm-hmm.
He's loving, he's smart, and he's surrounded by other great male figures.
Yes. What I was going to say about that too is that even though there's no replacing that parent, you still have to try your best to provide those other, figures, right?
Yes.
Those other supports,
yes,
just to meet their needs. But obviously there is going to be that part of them
Mm-hmm.
that is always going to long for the other parent, right? I work with a lot of foster kids too in the work that I do. And I see, even if they have a great family they're with or whatnot, there's still always that, I find, longing for their parents, right? It's just, I think, a natural human, thing,
Yes.
I know people who are adopted and have great parents, and they still eventually get to a place usually where they want to find out more about their family.
Their biological parents.
Yeah. So I think it's just a natural human thing that they always want that. But, as I always say to my clients, is that we can only truly control ourselves, and that, with the other parent, obviously it would be ideal if you guys could have a good, relationship where you're able to communicate in the best interest of the child. But, depending on the person, their maturity level, how much they've healed themselves, that might not be possible on either side, right?
And that's why it's really important not to bring baggage into a new relationship, because you don't really know what you're responding to or what you're reacting to.
Yes.
Are you reacting to the current situation that you're in, or have you brought in what happened in the last relationship and you've bundled it all together in one? Ultimately, we're talking about the kids. We're talking about the children. What's the best for the children? And do we have that right to decide that we should remove a parent because they come every Saturday, but they don't do anything with the child? They're not engaging. They're on their phone. Like, the kids calling, they're like, yeah. Is that enough of a reason to remove the parent? Or do you say, but they're coming, at least they're there? What about the one that doesn't even come at all?
Exactly.
Or what if the parent comes this month, but doesn't come for another 2 months, and then comes again for a couple of visits and then miss a couple of visits? He's not consistent, or she's not consistent. Is that enough reason to say stop coming? I honestly,
I know. Those are first off, those are so many different scenarios, right? So I don't even know which one to start with. But in terms of someone just coming like inconsistently, I think the first thing that would need to happen, I think this would be something that you would decide over time. I don't think it would be a knee-jerk reaction or a knee-jerk decision, but you would probably want to start by having a conversation about what your concerns are. Right? Seeing, what their response is, maybe good, maybe negative, but at least you voice those concerns. And then I think after a certain amount of time, if you continually see those things, then that's going to be at a point where you will have to make the decision that I guess you believe is best for your child, right? Especially if you guys don't have, a court order in place and those types of things, then you kind of do have that ability to make that decision yourself. And especially if they're not really that involved, you kind of have that ability to make that decision.
As the single parent, how much should your feelings be put into the equation?
your feelings about what your own feel. Okay.
Your own feelings, not only towards your ex,
Mm-hmm.
but towards their behavior. Like you have a
Mm-hmm.
problem with their schedule and you have a problem with them missing, they come this Saturday, but they miss next Saturday. And then they come for 2 Saturdays in a row, then they miss 3. Now, I know for me, it would irk me.
Oh, that would irk me
I would
too.
be sitting there. My heart would be like, get it together.
Oh, I would be telling them,
But,
get it together.
yeah. But if you have that relationship where you can, great.
Yeah.
But the child's happy to see him.
Yeah.
He comes this Saturday, doesn't come the next 2 Saturdays, comes back.
But whenever they come, the child is happy to see them.
The child's happy to see them.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm upset because you're not consistent. And my child doesn't get consistency in her life, but my child's not upset.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. That's why I'm saying none of these are like easy answers, right? For me to say, oh, well, only when this happens is very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I'll actually share a quick story that is just actually a personal story, where I had to kind of even check myself and be like, okay, is this my own ego or, but anyway, I noticed my daughter would come back sometimes from her dad's and she would have her hair done like a new style. Cause I don't know how to 𝗙𝐵. I need to learn, but I don't know it yet. So I usually do her hair in like little twist outs and put it in 1 or 3 or whatever. But she would have her come back and have her hair done. And I told him one day, I go, don't make your little gal come play up in my picnic head, right? But then I had to stop and tell myself, you know what? I can't control everything he does, right? And he even also brought up that control thing. And I had to stop and check myself too, because is that my ego? Because I'm thinking, oh, this is my child, don't be in her hair and all those kinds of things. So honestly, it can happen to anyone, right? So eventually I just said, you know what, whatever, it makes my life easier. I don't have to do it. Let me just let it, like if he wants to do it, let me let him do it.
I have a burning question about that.
Go ahead.
Was the hair done well?
Actually, I'm not gonna lie. Okay. There was one time where it was just done too small and my child's hair is fine. And I just told him, don't do it so small. Right. Mm-hmm. But apart from that, to be honest, whoever the girl is, she knows how to do hair.
So I'm sitting here.
Yes.
Being the complete hypocrite, because if I was in your shoes, I'd feel the same way.
Yes.
But I'm not. So I'm over here saying, but since you can't cornrow and somebody is doing your child's hair.
Yeah.
And that's what the question was in the last episode. Yes. We got to make sure when we're making these decisions that it's based 100% on what's on the best for the child, 100. Not because the next gal is braiding your child's hair. Just want to make sure we get that straight.
Yes.
Right? No, but it's a really good example to give, and thank you for that.
Yeah, no
because
problem.
I know, and I'm sure there's a lot of women out there, I'm looking at you all, that would feel some kind of way. I know some women, and probably personally, that would have taken out the hair. I'm just saying. That's just, and in our culture, putting your hands in someone's that's a big thing.
Is a big thing.
It's a big thing.
Yep.
So we got to make sure when we're deciding on what's best for our children, it's on what's best for our children.
Yep. Because what I always do too is right now my daughter's only 3.5, so she can only express so much, right? But I always do ask her, how was your weekend? Things like that. And as long as she's coming back and she's happy and whatever, that really should be all I care about, right? And so I really had to check myself in that moment. And just because I'm a therapist, I always tell people, don't think I'm perfect, because I also can, have the same issues as everybody else, right? But I think what's important is that we can acknowledge when we are doing something, that we, perhaps shouldn't be doing, and when we should possibly look at it in a different way.
I don't think we acknowledge it when it's happening. I think it's after we step outside of it that we can be honest and say, I'm sure it took you a minute to realize, what are you doing?
Oh yeah.
She's coming back with her hair done. Now, knowing you or knowing women, she would have a whole lot to say if the girl was coming back and her hair wasn't done. So he couldn't win. He was in a lose-lose situation. The girl comes back with the hair nice and combed. She can't comb hair, mind you. The girl comes back, self-expressed,
Hold on. I can still do hair.
She can do hair, but she can't cornrow. She can't cornrow.
Yes.
And the girl come back with the hair cornrow.
Yes.
And you have a problem. If she came back and the hair was a hot mess, she would have a problem.
Yeah.
So we do have to check ourselves a lot of the times. And I'm sitting here saying, girl, you're being a hypocrite right now. because that's hard.
Mhm.
I was
Actually,
fortunate. I didn't have to deal with my ex and his
yeah.
new one because he just wasn't
Yes.
here. So my
Yes.
child wasn't going there. She wasn't coming back with hair done or not done.
Mhm.
And I thank God for that because I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
one of my friends said is, you know what? She goes, yeah. She goes, let him do her hair, right? Because to be honest, I have her most of the time, right? He's like, yeah, let him get her hair done. She goes, that's one less thing for you to have to do.
But
And
see,
she goes, no matter what, you're still her mom, and she still loves you.
but that's the thing, though. We actually think we can be replaced, although we cannot, because as
No,
you said, our kids love us, and
they
we
do.
have to let that go. And so I was really happy when that person commented in the last episode and said, please make sure when you're making your decision, it's based on the child and not your hurt feelings.
Yes.
I was at, my cousin passed away, and we had a celebration of life on Saturday, and his younger brother was there with all of his kids. And I'm looking at all of his kids playing, and they're just different ages. And I'm like, that's what it's all about. You know, and his two older ones are with his ex-wife. The younger ones are with his, and it's just like, but if you were to walk in and see them interacting,
you would think
you would have no idea who belongs to who. That's just his kids.
Oh, wow.
That's the way it's supposed to be. We need to check our egos at the door and do what's best for the children. Even though I don't like you, you did me wrong, you cheated on me. The story goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
That's all irrelevant. What happened, good, bad, or ugly, happened between two adults.
Yeah. And
the child is innocent. The kids do not get to pay the price for that.
Yeah, the child is innocent in the whole scenario. So sorry, just to clarify, in that scenario, you're saying that it was your family member, but it was all of like his kids.
Yeah, they were all there. Yeah, they were all there.
Okay, wow. You know what? Good on them too.
I walked up to him and he's like, you know, I love him dearly and very proud of him. And I said, I'm so proud of you. Just watching that dynamic, that interaction with all the kids. It can't be easy when you're dealing with the current and the ex, and that's not an easy situation to be in. But that's how it should be. That's how it should be. So how do we get these fathers and mothers? My sister was quick to remind me in the last episode, it's not just fathers. And I thought, yeah, we did that wrong. We should have really said parents. Because as I told them in the last episode, my closest friend is a male.
Okay.
And he has a daughter. She's now 30 something years old. But when I met him, she was 4 or 6, very, very young. And the mother had her and decided a couple months after having her, yeah, I'm done.
Oh, wow.
This is not for me. But that's not even the worst part. I remember us being at a restaurant, sitting at the bar. We worked at a restaurant, both of us, at the same restaurant, at the Real Jerk. And we were sitting at the bar, and he was sitting there. The little girl was sitting in the middle. I was sitting to her right.
Yeah.
A lady walked in, looked around, turned around and left. I said, oh, that's strange. And he turned to me and he said, do you know who that was? And I said, no. And he said, her mother. Like, what? She walked in here knowing you work here. So the fact that you work here, there is that chance that she might be here. She sees her child.
Wow.
And leaves.
So she was upset by you being there, I'm assuming.
I don't know I don't care who was there. I couldn't walk in and see my child sitting there and not acknowledge my child. And that's what we're talking about when we say,
is it your
yes, is it
your
you
own?
Or is it the child? Because
oh yeah,
what could have happened for you to see I don't understand how a man can walk out of a child's life and just turn their back and go and live a whole nother life and just not look back.
Oh no.
I have a hard time understanding that. Multiply that by 100 for a woman, only because you carried that child.
I don't understand that on either side.
No, neither.
When you, but yeah, I don't understand that on either side. I don't understand how you can have a child and just choose to not be a part at all, right? Even if you do have, you know, the other parent that's kind of problematic. I'm sorry, that's what the court system's for. If they won't let you see the child, you could take those steps. So I don't know. I don't really see how someone, because I know that no one could come just take, you know, my baby, you know, I know that, right? And not let me see my child, right? So I think that those people who do that, to be honest, as in one of the previous comments, I think was stated, they're broken. Whether they're a man or woman, they are broken, right? Because how else would you be able to do that unless you're broken yourself?
And never took the steps to be repaired.
Yes,
And that's the
exactly.
problem. Like, if
Exactly.
you haven't taken the steps to be repaired, the
Heal.
cycle is going to continue. Again, I go back to when you're in a relationship and that relationship ends, heal.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just go right into
Jump.
the next one. I remember I was in a relationship for like 13 and a half years and that ended. But it
Mm-hmm.
took, the relationship itself wasn't 13 and a half years. If you were adding the time, it probably half that time. But it was break up and go
Mm-hmm.
back and break up and go back
Yes.
and situationship and
Yes.
just all that nonsense. And I remember when it was finally over
Mm-hmm.
and you realize that you've given away 13 and a half years of your
Wow.
life.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's, not everybody's, but you have those that will say to you, the best way to get over a guy is get under another one. And I was like, no. And this little girl came to me at work and she said, you know what you got to do? I know you're a God-fearing woman. You need to pray and ask God to
Mm-hmm.
send you another man. And I said, no, I won't do that.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm not going to waste my prayer because I wasn't ready.
Okay.
But I wasn't ready.
Okay. Yeah, no, I get it.
wasn't ready. I was
Because
still processing what just happened.
you know what? And you're right,
know,
because sometimes, yeah, you're right. Sometimes you're praying for things you're not even ready to receive yet.
You are not ready. And I don't want to disrespect God
Mm-hmm.
and say, yeah, bring him. And I know I'm still in my mind saying, but what happened?
Mm-hmm.
But what happened?
Mm-hmm.
See, when you take that into the next relationship and then that doesn't work,
Or
and
you're
probably
still cursing the last one.
Well, right. And so then you walk into the new one, cursing the new guy or the new lady.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have the kids in the mix.
Or
And if
they're
that
paying
doesn't
for
work out,
what just happened.
all the kids are paying for the decisions adults have made.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I can truly say, like, I think we talked about this when we were having our conversation prior to being on air, that I've primarily since like the age of like 26 just been in 2 long relationships, right? So I kind of just went from one and then kind of into another one, right? So I actually purposely said this time, I said, you know what? I'm going to take some time, and I'm also going to not simply accept who wants me, but actively choose who I want moving forward.
Shireen's doing that behind the camera, so I'm just showing you what's happening.
Right?
Amen.
Because what I realized is that I was kind of just choosing whoever would like want to be with me,
Mhm.
And to be honest, like I actually had someone pretty quickly after because my daughter's dad and I broke up at the beginning of this year, and literally in like March someone came in. But to be honest, yeah, I know it was pretty quick. And
I'm just picturing the revolving door still swinging.
but then I had to say to myself, number one, when I really look at it, I don't think he's right for me. He's a good person, but he's not right for me. And I was also like, this would be my normal pattern, just to be like, okay, next one, like, so I said, you know what, I need to take some time. I need to make sure that I'm deciding what is good for me, what's good for my child, who I think I will be truly compatible with. And also tap into, I think intuition is a big thing too, right? Tap into your intuition. And and I think I'm just kind of trusting myself more and trusting this process. And
I think another thing too is when you have young kids, you got to be very careful of that revolving door. And that's one of the things I say about J-Lo, not to bring a celebrity into this discussion, but I don't have a problem with her man hopping. Like, if you're going to confess that you have to be in a relationship, that's who you are. I love that you live your life unapologetically.
Yeah.
Go for it. You go at it. God bless you.
Yeah.
Except.
Yes.
When she's got 2 children.
Kids. Yeah. No.
That they get into every single one of these relationships. And those people have kids. So now them and the kids are friends. And it's for me personally, I did not want that for my daughter. I didn't want that. And so I dated after that 13 and a half year long relationship. I met a guy. We dated for about a year. We broke up. And this is the thing they say when you're asking God for something, when you're praying for something and you're very specific, don't settle. You're asking God for A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And he's like, okay, I hear you. I hear you. And then somebody comes along and they have A, B, C, no D, no E, no F, but they have G and half of H.
Yeah.
And you're saying that'll do.
Yeah.
And then you bring them in my case, literally into my daughter's life, into my mother's life.
Yeah.
And then that relationship lasted a year.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out.
Yep.
And he left. And I said to my daughter, So what do you think? And she's like, Mom, I didn't like him anyways.
Oh, wow.
And I said, you never said anything.
I find people always tell you afterwards.
Yeah, she's like, I said you didn't say anything. She's like, well, you seemed happy and he was okay,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
just didn't.
I feel like your friends and family, like they kind of know.
She's like, didn't like him anyways. And then what do? Date him again for the second? Yeah.
Oh geez. You know what? I remember I told them too. I said, can you guys tell me from the beginning, please?
Yeah.
If you don't like
So
because I'd really like to not waste like years, you know.
Well, thank God it was twice. It was only a year both times,
Oh,
and that. But again, we have to factor in we can't date all willy-nilly.
No, we can't.
When we have kids, especially thank God my daughter was older. She wasn't a little child.
Baby,
but when they are, sorry, we have to sacrifice that time so that we're not bringing Uncle John and Uncle Peter and Uncle Mike and Uncle Paul.
Oh yes.
Like just too many uncles.
Do you know what? I actually completely agree with you, but I'll be honest too. My heart really goes out to like women who don't have much help and the child is with them all the time, but they do want to move on with their life and date. It's a very hard balance, especially if you have young kids.
Yeah.
I'm kind of lucky I have my mom, and my mom's like, yeah, go find your husband. Yes. So my mom will allow me to go out on dates, and my daughter's not really affected because she'll be home with grandma and grandpa. So she's good. Right. And I'm not bringing them in the home.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of able to have a little more freedom in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I can imagine it I know some women who have really sacrificed that for a while, especially when they've had young children. Yeah.
It's a sacrifice that you have to take. I often say that when you become a parent, your life doesn't end, but it changes.
It does.
So no, you cannot do the same thing. You can't just jump up at the drop of a dime and say, y'all going where? I'm coming. No, you can't.
Yeah.
You have that responsibility, especially if you're a single parent. You have that. But even couples, married couples, you'll often see them trying to plan a date night.
Oh, yeah.
So they got to get a babysitter and all that in place so that they can just go out and have dinner uninterrupted. So the kids have to be put first in all decisions that we make. And the more I talk, the more I'm trying to convince myself, especially in our culture, that it has to be the extreme before we tell a parent, don't come back anymore. The more I'm thinking about it, the more we talk, the more we just thinking, it has to be the extreme. I don't think it can be, yes, he comes every week, but he doesn't interact with the kids. The thing about it is, the kids will form their own opinion. Give them time.
Yes.
Give them time. You keep coming every Saturday when they're 6 and you come and they're like, daddy, 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 mommy, mommy, mommy. And you're not engaging with the child. And now they're 7, now they're 8, now they're 9. You come and you're not engaging. You know what? Neither are they.
Yep.
You walk in and you probably won't even see them the whole time you're there because they're not going to come out of their room.
No.
They'd rather stay in there. So give them time.
Kids are very smart.
They're very smart. They'll form their own opinion.
Yep.
And the other parent doesn't have to say anything. Doesn't have to get involved.
Yes. Because I think that's something too that happens sometimes. Let's be honest. Sometimes, when you're angry or you're upset, you can kind of put your own opinions onto the child or just be, cursing about him after, he leaves and stuff like that. And, but really, number one, we just shouldn't be doing that, especially not in front of the child. Like, save that for your friend or for your conversation or for your therapist after, right? But you're right. Children are smart.
They're smart.
And if you're not really engaging with them, and if you're always canceling on them and things like that, after a while, no, they're going to be like my friend's child who doesn't want to go anymore.
And if I was a single parent at home, and I know you're coming over, and my child has a birthday party planned or something, I'm gonna let them go. You can waste the trip coming over. Hey, where's Susie? Oh, she gone to the birthday party. Why didn't you tell me? I know. I know that's a little vindictive. I know.
I was gonna say, didn't we just talk about this? Didn't we just go over that?
But I'm just saying. Look, that's just true talk. That's
I know.
Talk. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think what I would say is, whatever you do, whatever your decision is, let it be based solely on what's best for the children, not on your feelings, your emotions. I know we have them. I'm sitting here just the other day. My daughter's 29 years old.
Wow.
And you know how you always get these little clips that come on your phone?
Yes.
It was a clip of a lady videotaping her little son, cutest little black boy.
Aw.
And they're at a train station or something waiting for his father. And he's just
Okay.
standing there and he's like just looking and looking and looking.
Excited.
And the mother's saying, he's coming, he's coming, he's coming. And there was a guy walking across the where the concourse is when he saw his dad.
Oh, geez. The face, the lights
Oh,
up.
he took off running. The guy had to stop so the little boy can keep running and just jumped into his.
Yep.
And why am I sitting there?
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm thinking, I started to cry and I thought, my daughter missed out on that. And she would have been a great daddy's girl.
Yeah.
And I just, this is years later. The effect doesn't go away.
Well,
doesn't go away.
Well, okay. I understand what you're saying. I know what you mean. It has a lasting effect, right? But I think there are things that we can do and that you can individually do to
minimize
try to to try to minimize that and to try to heal yourself moving forward. But I know that is such a beautiful moment.
Oh, it's so lovely.
Yeah.
It was so, and I always read the comments when I see things like that. And everybody else was saying, who's cutting onions in here? And why am I sitting here crying?
Yeah.
And I think I've done a really good job by the grace of God surrounding my daughter by really good people. She has so many aunties.
Yes.
When she was in school, she's an adult now, obviously, but when she was in school, I would call her on my way home from work and I would say, what are you doing on the 302 bus? Where are you going? And she'd be like, how do you know? I said, you're surrounded by aunties. She's like, Mommy, I love my aunties, right? But man, I can't go nowhere. I'm like, that's how it's supposed to be.
Well, you know
Thank
what they
you, Jesus.
say? It takes a village, right?
I had a village. I had, and I have. I've had friends on the phone with me talking and they'll be like, hold on. Hey, child, where you going? And why are you here not home? Listen to me. And then they come back and they're like, oh, sorry, I have to talk to your daughter. I'm like, oh, okay. And then we go on.
And you go on with your conversation.
So I was blessed.
Yes,
I was blessed.
Awesome.
And I tell the story not only to share how blessed I was that she was surrounded by love and is surrounded by love. I often say she's the wealthiest child I know.
Wow.
Not in the terms of money, but in terms of love. She's the wealthiest child I know. And even with all of that, she has moments of, but Mommy, why? That I can't answer. And
the thing is, you know what? Maybe, I don't know if it's something that you've ever explored, but like, maybe eventually she does, go to, therapy about that, or because we also have to kind of heal those wounds too, because it manifests differently in boys and in girls. Yes. And I don't know how you kind of saw it manifest with your daughter, right? But with some girls, it can be like, to be honest, like, I went to an event to help out a friend on the weekend. He's kind of a controversial character, but I went to Umar Johnson's event. And he said something there. He said, sometimes the effect on daughters is any man will do. Right? And the thing is, no, and that's why
because their fathers, sorry to cut you off, their fathers are their first love.
Yeah.
So if you don't have that first love, you are right. Any man will do
it.
And you're trying to get that. And you said something about it being manifested differently in males and females. I see that with my niece and my nephew.
Yeah.
Complete same experience,
but different way.
They responded and reacted. Even now as adults, they did as children.
Yep.
And even now as adults, they react and respond to it differently.
In different ways.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Wow.
And with boys, again, it's kind of like that lack of that, male figure, right? And as you said, even in their adulthood, right? It's like they have to do the work to not repeat those patterns because that's what they've grown up with. That's what they've seen, right? How can we, like, as you kind of said, how can we expect them to be, good husbands, good fathers when they've never seen that? They really have to kind of do that work. And that's why it's also so important that they have those positive figures and those male role models in their life if their dad is not in the picture, right? So I think these are things that, single just parents can have in mind, right? And I know we're saying single parents, and let's be like totally honest and transparent. Yes, it can be both, but let's be honest, in our culture, it's mainly single mothers that it is, right? So while I want to be inclusive and say, and use that term parents, I also want to be realistic and look at the actual stats and numbers, right?
That's fair.
Because I think it is more on that side.
So as a psychotherapist, in closing, as a psychotherapist, what would be your advice to preteens, teens, young adults that grew up with a single parent,
Mm-hmm.
especially those where the parent was there and then all of a sudden gone. And they're
Mm-hmm.
still struggling with that now. What would be
Mm-hmm.
your advice to them?
Well, I think if you didn't have it when you were growing up, I think you do need to try to forge that relationship, whether that is someone, as I said, like, I don't, just because I'm a psychotherapist, I'm not going to say to everyone, go get a psychotherapist, right? I think it's great, but yeah, but I realize not everyone has the resources to sometimes, or perhaps that's not your preferred method. So it's even like, yeah, go to like a youth group, maybe for young boys, maybe get them a big brother, like
Mm-hmm.
go through one of those services, maybe, and especially if you're still a teen and things like that. Parents, should try to facilitate this, but if your parent did not, then you're going to have to try to facilitate that yourself and
Mm-hmm.
do that work so that you can start the process of healing. Not to say that it won't still hurt that parent wasn't involved, but especially as an adult, you have to kind of take the onus to do some of your own healing, right? And that could also be just done by just praying, meditating, self-reflection, all of those different things that you can do. Reading, I think, is something that, kind of a lost art nowadays, right? If you don't like to read, do an audiobook, because they're also I might give you some books after even that people could read in regards to this topic too, that we could put in the in the description in the bottom, because I think also we also at a certain point have to take the responsibility to do the work that we need to do as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's not as simple as saying get over it. You're 20, you're 30,
No.
you're 40, get over it.
No.
Although that sort of kind of does apply.
Mm-hmm.
At a certain point, what happened happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you not only have to extend forgiveness and grace to that parent that wasn't there, the absent parent.
Yes.
You also have to extend yourself grace.
Yes.
You have to say, this happens to me. This is how it made me feel. This is how it still makes me feel, but I'm not going to allow it to define me.
Yes.
I'm not going to allow it to define the rest of my life. And I'm not going to do to my children what was done to me.
Ooh.
And as I said in the beginning, I think a lot of people enter their lives that way, especially ones that were hurt by a parent. They are so dedicated to not repeating the cycle. I think they try so hard that they end up repeating the cycle. Like they're so determined not to be like that father, like that mother, that they end up doing it. I think if you allowed yourself grace and allowed yourself to be, you stand a better chance of not repeating that cycle.
So, okay, like kind of just like forgive yourself.
Forgive yourself.
Because, you're right. Because what I always say is you made the best decision that you could make at that time.
For yourself at that time.
Yes. And even when you think of other people that hurt you, I think also they could only do at that time, like, or they could only operate at the, at the level that they were at that time.
They can only do what they know. We are in my Bible study group, me and a few ladies are doing a study on the book of Job. And we've all heard about the book of Job, and we've all heard the saying, you've got the patience of Job, you've got the patience of Job.
Yeah.
And then doing this study, I learned it had actually nothing to do with Job's patience. I don't know why we say that. But I brought that up only because of the friends that came to comfort him when they heard what was happening to him, how he lost everything.
Yes.
And they came from, we don't know where, from how far they came from. And at first, for 7 days and 7 nights, they took off their clothes, because when they got there, he was sitting there naked with all these bumps all over him. So they joined him.
Wow.
And then they proceeded to tell him it was his fault and what did he do wrong. And so we had this debate that lasted weeks in Bible study about what kind of friends were they really? How can they come and accuse him like that? And I said, it took me a while for me to come to this realization. They were only doing and saying what they knew.
Yeah.
They came from the Old Testament, where there was no grace and mercy, where when you did something wrong, God struck you down right then and there. Like, you did what? Boom. Right? There was no grace and there was no mercy. That's what they knew. So they're coming to him with what they knew.
Yes.
You had to have done something wrong. God wouldn't just punish you this way for no reason. Just repent, say you're sorry, and maybe he will have mercy on you.
Yep.
And so we had this big debate, like, well, no, they weren't being a good friend. Why weren't they being more understanding? Why weren't they being more empathetic? Because they didn't know about understanding and empathy.
Yes, exactly.
So it's the same thing. You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
If you don't know how to be a father because you never had a father to show you what being a father is like, how do you become a father when you start having kids? Because all you know is as a man, you get to leave. How long do you hold on to that statement? Until I was talking to someone today about how long a woman stays with a guy that she knows is wrong for her. And I said, it doesn't matter how many times someone says he's wrong, until you feel it in your soul.
Or until he's disrespected you enough that you have no other choice.
Sometimes that doesn't even work. Sometimes that doesn't even work. You got to feel it. Yeah, here. Yeah. So the answer to your question is until.
But no, I understand what you mean, because you can tell a friend or something. I think we've all experienced that, where a friend, we know she's not with the right man. We tell her, but she's not gonna leave until she's ready to leave.
Listen,
or he's not gonna leave until he's ready to leave.
I once heard that people ask for advice or for opinions when they know the answer and they don't want to accept it. So what they're looking for is that one person who's going to agree with them. So if you know he's the wrong person, or you know she's the wrong person, and all your friends them are saying 15 friends can say, yeah, no, that's the wrong one. You're looking for that one person that says, he's not that bad, she's not that bad, and all of a sudden you and that person now become best friends.
Oh my god!
Because you're going to go with that one person and not the 15, because that's all you were waiting for, is that one person to validate what you needed. So now you're good. He can stay, she can stay, because it's been validated.
Yeah.
Listen, where the Holy Spirit dwells in the pit of our stomach, in our gut, that's what you have to listen to.
And then I think you were talking about earlier too, that sometimes we try so hard not to be in these situations and end up in them, right? What I will also say with regards to that is that even if you do find yourself in that situation, right, that you tried your best not to get into, right? Okay, you can accept that, that happened, right? And you can still move forward.
Yeah.
And you can still have a great family life. You could still have a great relationship moving forward. You can show your child what a healthy relationship looks like. So also don't be so hard on yourself and beat yourself up as well. Right?
I agreed.
So I think that's also a big message to send out, that, that doesn't have to define you.
Doesn't have to define you. Thank you. Any closing remarks?
Well, you know what I noticed? I noticed that I didn't even say my organization.
Go ahead. So, take your time.
I'm a psychotherapist. My organization is 𝗷𝗚𝗃 Mental Health Services. We are located in Pickering, so we do virtual and in-person therapy, as well as I said, mental health workshops, retreats. We do events as well. So yeah, if you are interested, please feel free to reach out. And the best way to connect with me on IG or TikTok would just be at 𝗷𝗚𝗃 Mental Health. And the website is just www.ropmentalhealth.com. And I'll also end by saying too, I believe even therapy is all about relationships, right? Relationships with, your partner, your previous partner, your co-parent, your boss at work, but most importantly, the relationship with yourself. And I believe the most important thing is for you to have a good relationship with yourself and heal yourself from the past things that have happened to you. I believe then you'll be able, especially in this situation, you'll be able to communicate, then you'll be able to manage, then you'll be able to move forward and show up as your best self for your child.
And communication is the key. The communication between the two exes and the communication between the parents and the children.
Exactly.
It's communication, respect, boundaries. Can't say enough. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank
Danielle.
you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And thank you guys for being with us tonight. This, again, another rich conversation. We just seem to be having so many of them. And that's because my Let's Talk platform is all about whatever you want to talk about. And so I get calls all the time saying, can we talk about this? Absolutely. There is literally nothing I will not talk about. So whatever that's on your heart, whatever you want to discuss, all I ask is that you have a strong stomach. Because I'm not responsible for the comments. Not everybody's going to agree with what you have to say. So even with me on this platform, I have to have thicker skin. And I
Oh,
thought I
yes.
had thick skin.
Oh.
But you have to have thicker skin. So come prepared to
Mhm.
be challenged with whatever it is that you want to discuss. But we can discuss everything and anything. I'm open to any discussion.
Mhm.
That's who I am as a motivational life coach. That's who I am as a motivational speaker. Is to be out there to motivate and impact and support and uplift and encourage and empower people
Mhm.
to be the best version of yourself. That's what it's all about. And to remember and to recognize that you are not alone in whatever you're going through. You are not alone. If you need to reach out to me, to contact me, if you would like a free 30-minute consultation, go to my website at www.𝗷𝗠𝗵𝗲𝗏.com. Everything is in my name. My website is my name. My Instagram is my name. My YouTube channel is my name. And you can find me on Facebook under my name. So everything, I made it very easy for you to find me. You cannot not find me. I'm also having on October the 26th, I'm having a business symposium workshop. I am also a small business startup consultant,
Mhm.
and I will be answering all questions related to incorporating and registering your business. I know a lot of people out there are doing side hustles, and a lot of people are leaving their full-time regular jobs to do like what I did, what the Lord placed on my heart. And they're going out there and they're doing it. And then they're stuck with the, do I incorporate or not? Do I register a business or not? What's the difference?
Mhm.
And what are the pitfalls? What are the ins and outs? So what do I need to know? I get these questions all the time from those who know that I have a 25 plus year background as a senior corporate law clerk. So I'll be having a business seminar on October the 26th in Whitby at the Brooklyn Community Center. You can find out about that on my Instagram page or email me if you have any more questions. It's posted all over Facebook. So I look forward to seeing you guys out for that so I can answer all of your incorporation questions. That's it for me for tonight. Thank you for watching. And our next live, in my mind, the next one will be in 2 weeks because I'll be leaving at the end of the month to travel. So we'll probably be having another one in 2 weeks. Watch out for the notices. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, Danielle.
You're
Have a
welcome.
great night. God bless you all, and I'll see you again.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye, guys.